This is the number 4 in the series of an interviews with Misha Sakharov.
Name this guy, Misha Sakharov.
No. I was thinking about the integrative. Sorry about that. I was thinking about the integrative health engineer. I think it's a fairly new term, and I've still got to get my head around it. But the integrative health engineer, and we're both here in Denmark. And for those who haven't joined before, Misha's done some fantastic work in assisting people cure themselves of cancer, and he has done this by not looking at the problem from a traditional medical point of view, traditional doctor, but he's looked at it from the point of view of an engineer. So he's applying engineering to this. Right. And we've talked about various aspects of it. We talked about the breathing. We talked about what could be described as the centering. And today we're going to talk about the diet, because Misha has the results Misha has got have been a result largely of you could call it strict diet, but a disciplined diet that his clients have agreed to undertake. Yeah. And so, first of all, ketogenic. What does this mean? I mean, most, ketogenic. Can you please explain the term ketogenic?
That's a very good question, Steve. And that's right. Most of the results I got, it's from combination of ketogenic diet with breathing, with physical work, and this couple of other things, and the immunity, work with immunity. And ketogenic stands for generating ketone bodies.
Ketone bodies.
Actually generating ketosis, state of ketosis, generating ketone bodies. And ketone bodies, it's the particles that are made in our body from the fat, actually. So
as opposed to what normally happens when you're eating, say, carbohydrates, what happens in the body?
That's right. When we eating carb, we're not actively digesting other than carb, and the carbohydrates is a source of glucose that all of our cells are depending on. And there's a couple of problems associated with this state. Interesting thing is that's the state that most of us, we are in the most of our life. And
oh dear.
Oh dear. And we have, and the latest research, actually the research and the practical use of ketosis started 400 years ago in the medical profession, at least.
Was that to treat?
Denmark, actually, in Denmark, yes.
Yeah, to treat epilepsy patients, wasn't it?
Treat epileptic seizures. So, the state of ketosis is very normal for us human beings. It's the two normal states of energy work for the cells. The cells can be in two states. They can be in the state of digesting glucose as a primary fuel source, and it can also switch to digest fats as a primary fuel source.
Okay.
And those two states actually requires optimized sets of enzymes to be able to break down optimally glucose, or to break down optimally fats. And that's very interesting for us, because it's called a period of adaptation. All of us, we can actually break down fats, and we normally come in the state of ketosis when we fast.
Okay.
Actually, the most of us, if we eat not late, but for example at 6 o'clock, and then we can come in the state of ketosis during the night. So we start.
Okay, so you can switch. It's not like you have to be either one or the other. It depends on your diet, obviously, and how you're fasting.
That's
But what
right.
about this? What about, a lot of people would say that, especially when you talk about people with diabetes, that they shouldn't get into this ketosis because they then risk a state called acidosis.
That's right, but it's not ketosis.
What is that?
That's right. It's called ketoacidosis. It's
Ketoacidosis. I'm sorry. Thank you.
There's a difference, and it's very crucial to know the difference, because I experience when my clients are talking at home or at work that they are experimenting. They actually got this guy, this Russian guy that tried to help them with better health. And they are about to enter the state of ketosis. So they got, oh man, you have to really know that it's very, very dangerous. And what normally it is about, it's the state of ketoacidosis. And ketoacidosis and ketosis are very different things. And the difference is, if you see, that's the level of glucose in the blood. And that's the level of ketones in the blood, which are actually parts of fats that are not digested. That's why we see them in urine or in air, in exhaled air, or in the blood. So what happens is the state of ketoacidosis for diabetics, that's a very dangerous state, is when the glucose in the blood is very high, very, very high. And ketones are also high. That's called ketoacidosis. And the state of ketosis is very different, because in the state of ketosis, glucose is actually lower than normal, and ketones are high. So they go from 0 to like 1 or 2 millimole per liter. And glucose goes from maybe 6 or 8 down to 4. So they
so it changes position. Okay, so there's lots of questions I can think of this, but basically, tell me, how did you find out that that being in ketosis was beneficial for the treatment of cancer? How did that come about, and why?
What I wanted to find out, it's what kind of diets or dietary changes and lifestyle changes are interesting for medicine-free self-healing of cancer and other lifestyle diseases. And there's a lot of different things in the internet, and I tried really to understand the physiological base for different protocols, eating protocols, dietary protocols, protocols of nutrition. And what I found out was that very few of these protocols had a very well documented scientific background.
Yeah.
And what I found out is actually that's not a case with ketogenic diet, with ketosis. It was the lot of scientific evidence, and there was a lot of scientific research and pilot trials, actually, that were showing very good results. With all kinds of inflammatory disease and what is called systemic inflammation. And cancer, which cancer is one of the lifestyle diseases that are sharing this aspect, systemic inflammation. And I found out that I should maybe try. I got my first cancer clients at that time, and I was in paleo before myself, and I switched to ketosis just to try it out. And I experienced a lot of nice things, like, for example, a die off of my pathogenic bacteria in my gut, like candida bacteria.
Okay, but can I just ask you, is this because the ketogenic diet, the fat diet, is good, or is it because we are doing away with the sugar stroke carbohydrate diet, starch diet, which is, you could say, bad? Is it that you're not replacing something that's better than the carbohydrate? It's just that the body, in not getting carbohydrates or the carbohydrates that cause the problems, that they are eliminated from your diet.
If I understand you right. So there's
sorry, it was a very complicated question.
It's a very complicated question, and there's a couple of aspects. One of the aspects is the story of what is carbs. Is it an essential macronutrient or not? What is the story of a human race digesting carbs? So what do we have in supermarkets available right now? What kind of carbs? And so on and so on. And that's at least a part of a question. Is that what you wanted?
Yeah, it's just what I'm saying is it's not from what you're saying, it's not as if there is something magical about a ketogenic diet going over to fat. It's just that when you're giving the body an alternative source of energy, you're not using it. I mean, to put an analogy, it's the difference between having a power station running on coal or running on natural gas. If you run the power station on natural gas, you're emitting a lot less pollution and a lot less carbon dioxide. Whereas if you're running on coal,
that's a good analogy. I would say that that's a good analogy, but I would rather make this analogy of running on gas and then shifting to run on atomic fuel in a
all right.
So
it does do something as well.
In a very well controlled atomic plant with a lot of security measures, because when we start burning fats optimally, we actually we have 2.5 times more energy on 1 gram of fat.
Yeah,
2.5 times more energy than both on protein and carbs. Okay. So what we do, we optimize our energy consumption, and we optimize our metabolism. Okay. That's the one part of a problem, and that's one aspect. Yeah. And we can both use it to maximize performance, both mental and physical performance for athletes, for example. There's a lot of applications for athletes of low carb diets.
Well, that goes against what you've always been told, that if you don't have carbs, then you have no energy, you can't run a marathon.
But that's just a spin-off of this misunderstanding of the last 60 years from the research from Ansel Keys from the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, we talked about Ansel Keys.
Yeah, we talked about that in one of our labs.
Yes.
And that's still.
How can the world be so wrong?
That it's a must to have carbs. But the very interesting fact is that we have 3 macronutrients, which are macronutrients that are main energy sources in the nutrition. Macronutrients are fats, proteins, and carbs. Mm-hmm. And only 2 of those are essential macronutrients. And guess what? Carbs are not an essential macronutrient.
So why do we eat them?
Because our body can produce glucose.
Okay, but when you think about the part of Denmark, for all those people outside of Denmark, a large part of Denmark is called Greenland. Mm-hmm. And the people up there, obviously nothing grows on the land in any case. So those people for generations and generations have merely eaten fat and protein with obviously no adverse effects. So
no cancer actually.
no
The
cancer. Is that right?
and the asthma diseases, they are virtually not existing in these populations.
So we should do a Greenland. We should do a Greenland study.
Yes.
That's really interesting. But how, obviously what you're saying about carbohydrates, within carbohydrates, there's clearly good carbohydrates, bad carbohydrates, because you say some of the nutrients that you get that I understand are essential in the treatment is the nutrients that you get from green leafy plants. And green leafy plants, after all, are carbohydrates. So there's a differential there in the type of carbohydrate. Am I right?
Well, could you please tell it again?
I'm sorry. Within your treatment, you also, as I understand it, you also put some weight into your clients receiving micronutrients, which are normally found in leafy green vegetables. Is that correct? But the leafy green vegetable is, of course, a carbohydrate. So what you're saying is there are good carbohydrates and bad carbohydrates. Can you tell me the differentiation between the two?
Yeah. Where we're eating ketogenic diet, we are thinking about what is the gross value of micronutrients related to carbs. See, in the green leafy vegetable, there's a very big value of micronutrients, of vitamins and different micronutrients, phytonutrients, and this stuff related to carbs. And the carbs are relatively low there. And if we go and see on the roots, for example, on starchy vegetables, that's a very big difference there. So what it does is that we need a lot of vitamins, and in order to get a good, nice balance of micronutrients and macronutrients, that's very nice to have green vegetables, because they will allow us to shift to ketosis, because we can only shift to ketosis if we minimize the level of glucose and we minimize the part of nutrition based on carbs. So we have to minimize carbs, but we can still come on ketosis eating green leafy vegetables, because the carbs percentage is very low.
So what proportion of the energy value of the fats do we have to get to before, in your opinion, we start? I mean, for people who are not going to start testing their blood or testing their urine, who just want to have a better, a more preventative attitude towards lifestyle disease, what sort of level do you need to be eating? What part of your diet has to be fat?
That's very different. That depends of what we want to achieve. And for people just want to achieve some health benefits, and people who want to heal themselves from cancer, that's a very big difference. That the two different. That's the entry level. Do get some benefits for your health. For example, if you are obese, if you want to get rid of some kilos, then you can start with the entry level. But for people that would like to reverse the cancer and start cancer healing, they have to go relatively fast on something we call therapeutic levels of ketosis. And the difference is in the amount of how much fat. So from the entry level of 70, maybe 70 up to 90, that's a difference. Okay. And then from restricting carbs from maybe 10% down to 1.5 on cancer. And then restricting protein from 20 to 8. There's also a problem, because when we eat too much protein, it becomes glucose. through the process called neoglucogenesis in the liver.
Tell me, you say fats, yeah, but I mean they're fats and fats. I mean, we hear about saturated fats, polyunsaturated fats. We know that we can get fats from animal fats. We can get fats from vegetable sources. We have essential fatty acids. We have omega-3, omega-6, or the omega-9. It's very difficult for the normal person, I think, to understand the differences. Can you briefly explain?
Yeah, we have to. Maybe there's a philosophical aspect of it. We all want some kind of balance and stability. So that's a very good way of remembering what's the difference. You see, the difference is we need mostly, as much as possible, saturated fats because they are stable. And chemical explanation is something about double bonds that and electrons and everything. But for most people, it's very hard to remember. You just have to remember that the saturated fat is the most stable kind of molecule. Then we have monounsaturated fat, which we also need very much. And then we have polyunsaturated fat, which is very, very unstable. It affects other molecules. There's a very big instability. Does that it can affect other kinds of molecules, and they turn unstable. And we don't want this instability. That's what the most of us have to remember. So, and what we used to hear from the old nutritional pyramid, which turns out to be the product of a scientific fraud, actually. That's the totally reverse. So there's a lot of things that we thought was right, and turns out that is not.
And in your opinion, is this the case? Is this the reason why lifestyle diseases, metabolic diseases such as cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, etc., are prevalent today? Is it
very much? Because we're talking about systemic inflammation, and systemic inflammation is promoted. That's a very good question. That's right. Give him more hearts.
Well, you've got two and I've got one. But what is you say about the saturated fats? Now, am I right in saying that the primary source for saturated fats is animal fat? Because I know there's probably some vegans who are looking here, and vegans.
That's right. But we have also something called coconut oil, and coconut oil has one of the biggest levels of saturated fat. So coconut oil and palm oil has very big levels of saturated fat, and that's not animal sources.
But the palm oil we normally get here, at least here in Denmark, is manufactured. I'm sure it's hydrogenated and contains a lot of bad stuff.
That's right. We have to really stick to non-hydrogenated kind of fat.
Cold pressed.
No. I just want to say that the systemic inflammation is promoted. Just a very good thing to remember. Systemic inflammation is promoted by wheat, for example, by bread, by pasta. So that's different kind of grains. We have a group called grains. That is promoting inflammation. The other thing that is promoting inflammation, it's refined sugars, the
corn syrup,
corn syrup, and high level of carbs, because they heighten the level of glucose. And the last thing is the wrong choice of your fats, of your oils. And we heard a lot about promotion of vegetable oils. And the truth about it is that the most of vegetable oils are very, very rich in a very unstable kind of fat, which is called polyunsaturated fat.
That's why you don't want to cook with these oils.
That's right. And the only one which is well-balanced oil is actually olive oil, which has a little level of saturated fats and a big part of monounsaturated fats. That's what is preferable kind of oil from plant
okay
oil,
but what about the difference between this thing about omega-3 and omega-6? You also read a lot about this, and we talk about omega-3 tablets and everything, and then I've read that that the American diet, when people do eat oils, that the proportion of omega-6, which is found in olive oil, to the proportion of omega-3 is a ratio of 15-1 in the American diet. And something about that the omega-3 and omega-6 ought to be more in balance. Is that correct?
You know what I'm prone to. I'm about to think that all these problems of disbalance of different omega fats, it's because of we stick to the very, very carb-rich diet.
I see.
If we go on to ketosis, the very natural balance of fat will be reestablished, and we don't actually need to think a lot about the balance of omega-3, omega-6, omega-9, things like that.
Okay, that's good to know.
So by choosing a well-balanced ketogenic diet, there's a lot of scientific evidence. There's a body of evidence that it's actually well-balanced. You need maybe a little bit of to think about magnesium and potassium, this kind of different things, because we can have a little problem in the starting phase, and we have to really know what kind of vegetable to eat and we have to know how to eat meat, for example, to satisfy the levels of magnesium and zinc and potassium, and how much sodium, salt we have to eat. There's a lot of knowledge connected with the adaptation to ketogenic diet.
Okay.
But I would like to answer there's one question that it comes by.
Oh yes.
By,
let's see this.
Gord Lickard. Yes.
He says, have you used oxaloacetate to mimic caloric restriction?
What I want, actually, what I work with, I try to not making shortcuts. So what I really try to, I try to see a caloric restriction as a normalization of nutrition and normalization of lifestyle for us humans. So I don't want to mimic caloric restriction.
Okay, so can you please say what caloric restriction is and why you...
Caloric restriction is the restriction, actually, caloric restriction normally is defined as, for example, intermittent fasting, which is a daily fast.
Yeah.
It's normally defined in therapeutic ketosis as 75% of energy needs of the body, and that's the scientific way of defining it. We have something called PAL, P-A-L, which is physical activity level, which is defined from 1.5 to 2.5.
Yeah,
and it depends on how much energy you need to make physical exercise, different kinds of work. How are you having a sedentary lifestyle, or you are physical? and then you have basal. How do you say basal?
Yeah, basal.
Basal metabolic rate, BMR.
Just to be able to live, breathe, and sleep.
And it depends on your body composition. Yeah. It depends on your age, and so on. So when we take BMR and PAL, we get actually our daily energy needs.
Okay, but
if we take 75% of that, we get caloric restriction. And what it does, it triggers different pathways of cancer healing, and actually it also triggers a healing of different lifestyle diseases like diabetes and asthma. It's something. There's a many way the inflammation works, and you can read. I made a little. I made a little article about the pathways of inflammation, of healing of inflammation, on my site, Sakharov.com. Sakharov.com. Yes.
.com. I'll just put that in the box there so people can can visit that. So okay, but
that's right. No, what I did. What about intermittent fasting? That's another protocol. I work with something called Therapeutic Ketogenic Diet, TKD, with CR and IF. CR stands for caloric restriction, IF stands for intermittent fasting. And that's another very crucial part of therapeutic kind of ketogenic diet, which is because the scientific part of it is based on the assumption that and the theory that our cells can exist in two states. One state is called nutritional state, and another state called the state of the cleansing state.
Okay. Nutrition and cleansing.
Yeah. In order to switch for the cells from nutritional state to cleansing state, which they need to get rid of a lot of stuff that the cellular, the inside of the cell doesn't need.
It's a debris.
It's a debris. That's right, of proteins that, there's a lot of different things that our cells don't need. And in order to get rid of that, the cells has to shift into other state, which is called different things, but it's basically a cleansing state. So the cell needs 10 hours of non-nutritional state to switch into the cleansing state.
So you mustn't eat, drink anything
10
for 10
hours.
hours.
So what happens normally? Normally we eat first time, many of us, at 7 o'clock, and the last time at 9 o'clock, maybe.
Yeah.
So how many hours from 7 to 9? 14 hours.
Yeah.
So when we subtract 24 from 14,
just about get 10
hours. So it means basically that cells never get the possibility to switch into the cleansing state.
Wow.
And what we do with ketosis, it's because the feeling of saturation is much better in ketosis because the much higher energetic value of the fats. So our saturation hormones that are not triggered as much in the state of ketosis, so we don't feel hunger so much when we are adapted to the ketogenic state, to the ketosis. So we actually can skip the breakfast and start eating first time at 12.
I don't know if I can do that.
Right.
No, but then again, I'm not ill.
You are simply not hungry in the morning. And that's very, very natural from all of my clients.
I see.
That's the first part. That's the easiest part. And then we start restricting when is the last meal of the day. And the last meal we can start restricting to 6 o'clock in the evening. So we have actually what we call a nutritional window of 6 hours. So when we take 24 minus 6, so what do we get? We get 18 hours. And it means 18 minus 10.
So you got plenty of time.
8 hours. So actually, all of our cells, all of a sudden, are in the state of cleansing for 8 hours every day. Okay. And that's what we need.
Misha, something just occurred. Sorry.
So that's why I don't want to mimic neither caloric restriction nor fasting, because it's a natural state for our genes. Because as hunter-gatherers, we used to eat once a day or once in 2 days, very often. When in the period of formation of our DNA for 20,000 years ago or so, as human beings, so I want to mimic the normality for our genes, and it's not an easy way. We have to do it the right way.
And this is why you have a very strict reporting. That's why you have this amazing computer model where you optimize it. Now, do you have to optimize it for each type of cancer or each patient, or have you developed a formula where you simply say, okay, we're looking at the breathing, the Pitaka breathing, obviously very important. We're looking at the ketosis. We're looking at the caloric restriction, and we're looking at the intermittent fasting. Is it a sort of a blanket formula, or do you have to tune it to each particular type of cancer or each particular patient?
That's a very good question. What I can say that the formulas are not mine. I'm just an engineer that can see, the connection between different kind of protocols, healing protocols. Mm-hmm. I use some scientific research made by Professor Thomas Seyfried in Boston University.
Who's written the book, what do you say, Cancer is a Metabolic Disease? Was that the?
That's right, exactly. Who's written the book, Cancer is a Metabolic Disease. And I start cooperation with Professor Seyfried now.
Excellent.
He knows about, my very cases. Good. And that's very, very interesting. I hope so, at least. So we had correspondence in last week, and I'm really looking forward.
That is acknowledgement for what you're doing. That's fantastic. Thomas Seyfried, he's one of the leading researchers.
So I use his protocol, which is called J2K ratio, and J2K ratio is glucose to ketones ratio.
Okay, how does that work then? How does that work? What is the science?
It works when we come into ketosis. The level of glucose falls.
Yeah.
And what happens is, that's a very interesting aspect of it. Then when the glucose falls, then the level of insulin falls.
Okay. Yes.
Because we don't need to regulate so much glucose, because glucose is low. So the sensitivity to insulin is getting bigger. So insulin starts working. So, and you know what happens? What people normally doesn't know, it's that insulin is a very, very strong inhibitor of fat breakdown.
Why?
Wow, it's called lipolysis or lipolysis, I don't know. And this process is controlled by insulin. So either glucose or fats.
Yeah.
So insulin regulates that. So when insulin falls, we can actually start breaking down fats in an optimal way. So the process of keto adaptation starts. And then what happens? At the same time, we start getting the higher level of ketone bodies. They are used as a fuel for the cells. Very good kind of fuel, very loaded with energy, 2.5 times more than the energy per gram.
And a much bigger source, I should imagine. A much bigger.
Sorry?
Well, I was thinking that, the idea that being a marathon runner or whatever, that they say that you should the night before you go marathon running, you need to have a lot of pasta or something, because the body will only be able to burn that the glucose converted in that. But if you're going for a keto diet, where also, I guess, the adipose fat is also an energy source that's available to the body.
That's right.
We have a much bigger reservoir, so you can go a lot longer.
We have two different processes of using adipose fat and for energy, and both white fat and brown fat, and we have also a process of using the dietary fat, what we take. So what we optimize the breakdown of the dietary intake of fat.
I see.
And then the breakdown of adipose fat follows in the start too, until we get regulated the normality again. So what I like with ketogenic diet is that it brings us to our normal weight. Many of my clients say, "Oh, I got the weight I had in my elementary school, or when I was 18. That's first time in my life I get the weight." Women says, "That's the first time in my life I get back the weight I had before I get the birth to my first child." That's a normality, and that's fantastic. What happens? I want to. That's very, very life confirming. How do you call it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm living proof of that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with me. I was just fascinated, and I followed not to the degree where I was monitoring, but I've just basically gone on what I could say was a paleo diet. And I guess between 60 and 70% of my energy intake is with fat. But I've lost 11 kilos, which is about 25 pounds in 4 months, and I'm at the same weight now when I used to play squash when I was 30. So that's fantastic. But we've got one question here: does coffee affect the ability to go into ketosis? I suppose
that's a very good question, and I want to tell you that no, not coffee and not tea doesn't affect the ability to go into ketosis. And that's a good part of it, because, what I really believe in, I believe in what we call the Pareto distribution. And Pareto distribution is many people know about 80-20 law.
Yeah.
I used to call it, we need 20% shit.
Okay.
In order to train our ability to stay alive, at least. And that's, thank the gods for that. Totally. And, I don't want to be fanatic. That's what really I don't like. I don't like about the dietary ideas to be fanatic. And I don't like political ideas to be fanatic. I don't like musicians that are fanatic about the style, or, I hate this actually, because it means automatically that you close for taking in of the input from other people.
Okay.
And we are social species. If we close for input from the outside, we become not nice, self-promoting, and this kind of species that are not really nice to be with. So what I want to say that we need coffee is good. I believe coffee is good. Somebody believes coffee have some bad effect to the body. I don't think so. I think so. We have to remember the word balance, and the word balance is about not to overdo things. So enjoy the coffee. Enjoy 2 cups of, what do you want, ristretto or macchiato or, cortado. And they're right. This coffee is basically another legumes, and that's right. But that's not a lot of carbs in coffee.
Sorry.
Yeah, and that's the good thing about the coffee, because legumes normally contain a lot of, and they contain proteins that are hardly breakable for our human genome, in our guts. So in this way, it's a little bit different. And when we there's a green coffee, that's that's the roasted coffee. I like a double roasted espresso, for example.
Okay.
And I drink it twice a day, and I am in the state of ketosis.
Okay.
And my clients do that too. They enjoy tea and coffee and herb teas too. But we can actually use coffee as a meal if we have something called ketogenic coffee, or turbo. How do you call it? Turbo coffee.
Okay.
Yes, and that we load coffee with fats, and then we mix it. And I have a couple of videos on my channel that show how to do it.
On your YouTube channel.
So tasty.
Sakharov channel.
So tasty.
Is it?
Yes.
While we're on the subject of diet and fanaticism and getting things in balance, I don't know if you're aware, Misha, but the WHO came today with a report saying that processed meats are possibly, well, they said they are cancerous, and they said they didn't know about meats in general, red meats in general, but on the other hand, there were a lot of things in red meats, such as vitamin B12 and some minerals. So what would you say about that? What do you think about?
I would say that I'll tell you guys: eat organic products, eat biological. Biodynamic, and it's very interesting. I'm about to learn a lot about the difference between biodynamic products, but on electron level.
Wow.
Not on the level of molecules, but on the deeper level. That's very, very interesting. And what it says that actually the cattle that eats under the sun, it gets loaded with energy from the sun,
vitamin D,
and that energy we can get through biodynamic grass-fed meats, and that's a totally new area for me, area of understanding.
Wow.
People like Ray Peat, for example, they work a lot of it. There's a lot of very interesting articles to learn. Very, very interesting people. Research, and sometimes very hard to understand. I'm starting to get, as engineer, I'm interested for this kind of knowledge, and I really want to know how to use this knowledge for my clients.
Exactly.
I want to survive, and the more I know, the more ideas I can actually get into life, get into process for every one of my clients. But the shortcut is buy biodynamic, buy grass-fed meats. They will load you with another kind of energy than just dietary fat or just dietary protein.
I guess
on the other level, on a deeper level.
I guess you feel that way also about wild fish contra farmed fish.
That's the same. The other aspect of it, that the farmed meats, the farmed fish, are loaded with a different kind of garbage, actually, that they use as food for this cattle, for this fish population, and it has diverse effects on our body. Actually, with aging, with lots of reactive oxygen species, promoting the not full oxidation.
Oh dear.
Yeah. So it's very good idea actually to avoid all of this because of antibiotica and all the other stuff that these
There's a question. Here.
GMOs.
Can you see the question? Have you noticed any effects on your memory by your adding fats? Does it have an effect, do you think?
Well, that's a very good question. No, I must admit that I didn't notice any effects, and at least the memory is intact.
That's good. So
at least.
Okay. So what about timescales, Misha? Because if someone comes to you and they've been through radiation therapy, they've been through chemo, and those therapies have ceased to work, or they can't go any further with that, then you've obviously got a window of window of opportunity. What sort of timescales do you like to work on, and how do you schedule the when do you expect results? All this.
Well, the window of opportunity is a very good term here because we really need time when we have cancer, especially when we have terminal cancers like brain cancers, glioblastomas, and astrocytomas. They are very aggressive kinds of tumors, and we really need to work both extensively using different protocols at the same time, and the time scale is not wide enough.
We're talking months or less.
We're talking, well, it depends. The brain tumors are possible to heal, and I really believe that, and I have good examples of that. And what I want to say, that we really need to work very seriously when we have the occurrence of brain tumors. And what I want to say is, in the in the medical profession, what we believe the medical profession, and what we it's about killing the cancer cells, and it's about cutting the cancer cells out. And that's the good thing with the cutting out for tumors, for example, because it actually gives us the window of opportunity, because it's so aggressive that sometimes if the operation, if it's too late, then we cannot survive. So it gives us a time to heal. But this time to heal is used on chemotherapy. It's a very aggressive therapies, and they are.
So if the cancer don't get you, the chemotherapy.
Just a second. They call it target therapies. And the problem with many cancers and many tumors are that the heterogeneity is not good. Meaning that there's a lot of population of different kinds of cells that you cannot really hit with target therapies a lot. That's why people normally die from glioblastoma. And what I believe is that we have to use this window of opportunity to change the circumstances for the cells in order to change them from letting them thrive to be inappropriate, and to let them to turn to being to force them to turn into normal state or to die. That's what we need to use the window of opportunity. And that's what I believe it's the future of cancer therapies. It's both preventive, very much, and medicine-free, by changing the pathways of thriving cancer cells into something they cannot afford. And that's about glucose level. That's called the Otto Warburg effect, and that's about diminishing the systemic inflammation. And there's a lot of very, very interesting scientific research, which you can read about in my site, sakharov.com.
Okay. I'll get at Sakharov.com.
Yeah.
Okay, Misha, can I ask you? You've had success.
That's a very good question. I'm sorry, may not work because of the blood-brain barrier. There's a lot of very interesting research right now that is showing that our lymphatic system is actually bypassing blood-brain barrier.
We don't have lymphatic system in our brain.
No, we have something called G-lymphatic system. It's a closed lymphatic system.
Okay.
It's called
G-lymphatic.
Lymphatic system.
Lymphatic.
It's a closed system. Yes, it's closed by blood-brain barrier. But the newest research from this year actually shows that our lymphatic system, our lymphatics there go here, up to here, and to here.
Yeah.
So found new channels. That's very, very interesting. And you can also read about this in my blog.
Okay, that's great. So, Misha, may I ask?
So we can actually train lymphatic system for for brain tumor patients.
You can train the lymphatic. Wow. Misha, cancer is a quite a broad term. I mean, we talk about hard tumors, we talk about brain tumors, which are obviously a different, the multiform. We talk about lymphatic cancers. We talk about various different forms of cancer. Do you believe that the treatment or the regime that you propose can basically treat all forms of cancer?
Well, I cannot postulate things like that. That would be a little bit risky because I simply don't know enough to postulate anything. The only thing I can do, that's a very good question, give him more.
I'd like the people who are watching, please. Oh, thank, I've got 15 now. Please ask questions. Misha is here to answer questions, and I'm a layman in this. I've got a limited physiologic knowledge, and I'm an interested enthusiast of what Misha does. But I'm sure there are people who are in much more. Have a lot more knowledge and insight into medicine to ask Misha. And I'm sure Misha is open to any question or challenge from anyone in the medical industry. So be our guest. Hope you are, Misha.
And while we are waiting for questions, Come on, guys. While we're waiting for questions, I would say that I now work with different kinds of cancer,
such
lymphatic
as?
cancer. Well, lymphatic cancer, blood cancers, Hodgkin's lymphomas, and the chronic leukemia, the chronic lymphatic leukemia, and the glioblastoma, astrocytoma. And what I see is what I see and what I learn from the body of scientific evidence that is possible to use ketosis together with oxygen therapy. And normally when people talk about oxygen therapy, it's a hyperbaric oxygen therapy. But what we do, hyperbaric oxygen therapy only doesn't change the automatical breathing patterns 24/7. And that's what we do with the technique I use, Buteyko. And actually,
so what you'd have to sit in a pressure chamber, you can achieve with Buteyko breathing. You don't need to sit in a pressure chamber for hours on end.
No, you don't have to pay money. That's the only money for the supervision, and you can train the techniques and use it the whole of your life. And that's what I really want to understand, to people to understand, that they can take responsibility in their own hands.
Yeah, and also before they even get near cancer.
And no, it's not because only because of getting rid of cancer. What we need really is to understand that we can also be healthy and start really thriving and enjoying our life. That's what.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what I want my clients to take this place. It's to help them get rid of their cancer by natural methods without both killing bad cells and good cells and actually disabling them, potentially creating new problems. Yeah. I just don't want that because I believe that it's possible to avoid killing. Really.
Well,
that's what so that's the difference. You see, it's actually the change of the way of thinking we need to.
Well, I think you inspired me.
Fear, and medical professions promote the fear, and we have to stop the fear.
Yeah, you're right. Misha, I would say to everybody watching that, as I say, I didn't think I was ill, but having been on following many of the protocols, but not to the letter, not in an extreme way. I mean, I'm 62 in a couple of months, and it's no word of exaggeration that I feel dial every other day. And the fact is that, when I was presented with the fact that 50% of people born after 1960 in the United Kingdom, in England, are reckoned to be affected or will be affected by cancer. That is scary.
There's
no point in living if you're living scared. And Misha's explained a lot. I hope everyone else has seen. He's explained a lot. And regarding cancer as a metabolic disease, as a lifestyle disease, I think actually makes a tremendous difference to the way you see life, especially when you're over 60. That's my opinion. But let's see if there's more questions here. Where are we? What are the best indications that you've reached and are maintaining a state of ketosis without ketoacidosis? Now, there's a technical question.
These two, they are the ketoacidosis. It's the level where you have the state where you have a very high glucose in the blood. It's virtually impossible in ketogenic diet. It's only possible when you have diabetes and you are not on ketogenic diet. I also work with people with diabetes, both 2 and diabetes 1. And I know that when they shift to ketogenic diet, they cannot go into the state of ketoacidosis. It's virtually impossible. So ketoacidosis, once again, that's the state where we have very, very high glucose in the blood and impaired insulin regulation sensitivity, and at the same time we have a high level of ketones in the blood. Okay, and the state of ketosis is very different because we have the same state of level of ketones in the blood, but our level of glucose, it's lower than normal. That's the difference. That's ketosis.
So ketoacidosis can't exist.
Ketoacidosis is potentially life-threatening for people that have diabetes. Ketosis is the normal state. It's the second normal state for all our body cells, for all of us.
Wow. Tell me, Misha, you said something there. You've expanded your clients not only to those who are suffering from cancer, but you mentioned that you have a client who has diabetes 1, and would you like to talk a little bit about that? Because I understand that this person he's had diabetes 1 for 40 odd years, and you're actually improving his lifestyle and improving his and balancing out his blood sugar levels. Is that correct?
That's correct. Totally.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
That's amazing, and I
should sell my shares in Novo Nordisk now.
That's a very good question. 1,000 a month out of my reach. That's what I do. I work with my clients every day. That's what I do. It's not just giving an hour, now and then, but I'm working every day. And the access when I'm working with people with cancer, I tell them, you have to get in contact with me if you have any questions. So that's the difference. If that answers your question. 1,000 a month out of my reach. So I can only work with from 8 to 10 clients at a time.
Yeah, it's very intensive, isn't it?
That's very intensive. And I get up at 4:30 every morning. The first thing I do is to get through the journals of all my clients until 8 o'clock in the morning.
Around the world.
Yeah.
I'd say it was an interesting thing here, because from what you were talking about epigenetics a couple of days ago, it seems to me, from what I understand, that this concept of hereditary diseases is not really valid. Is that correct?
Oh, that's a very good question. I love this question. Give him some hearts. Come on, guys. Give him some hearts. He's so good. He's so good. Respect. No, okay. That's a very interesting area, and we have to have a whole new blab about it. So blab.
Okay, an epigenetic blab.
Epigenetic blab. And the epigenetics is a crucial area of my work too. But in order to come into the understanding of epigenetics and to practice it, to get it in a practical level, we have to go through a lot of education, and it takes some months to experience what the epigenetics is and how can you actually reverse the way your DNA expresses itself. That's the expression. So is leukemia hereditary? Bloody Russian. Is leukemia hereditary disease? Thank you very much. Okay. Yes and no, because I have actually the client with chronic lymphatic leukemia, and in 7 months of work, without any other protocols, he said no to radiation. He said no to chemo, and we only worked with my protocols. And normally the double time for leukocytes. That's what leukemia is. That's the uncontrolled production of leukocytes that are not normal. They have a bad form, and they are not functional. And there's a lot of them. They're flooding blood with
mutated.
Yeah. So normally the doubling period for leukocyte level is the 1 year. So they double in 1 year. So it's a slow disease, chronic lymphatic leukemia. And what we did, we actually it happened to lower the level of leukocyte in half a year. So so that's a big thing, and that's why actually I get the Professor Thomas Seyfried as getting interested in my work, because of this case of a CLL, chronic lymphatic leukemia, and use of ketogenic diet and his protocols, intermittent fasting, caloric restriction, and therapeutic ketosis for this disease. And the thing is that my client's mother also had the same disease. Her level, he has also leukemia, and very slow leukemia, and he got it also. But you see,
thank you.
Mark, that's my colleague. Hi, Mark. Nice to see you here from Holland.
Okay, but you're saying is the difference between the mother and the son was the way it was expressed. Would that be right in saying the genetic expression was affected by environment?
Because of the wrong diet, we express our genes. That's what is the essence of epigenetics.
Okay.
Otherwise, they don't express. But when we force them to express by choosing how we react on the stress from the environment, we hyperventilate, chronic hyperventilatory disease, and we have wrong nutrition. We're wrong. We there's a lot of
Yeah,
stress.
we're the wrong lifestyle. We're sitting now. It's wrong for us, isn't it?
And that's right. That's what forces our genes to actually express, and that's how we get the all the hereditary disease actually. But we don't have to, and we can actually reverse the expression of the genes by changing the conditions of our environment and changing the way we react on that. You see, that's the totally different way of self-healing.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, we've been going now for about for well over an hour, and I think there must be some sort of limit on how big you can upload something to YouTube. So I think we're going to have to wind it up there. I think we've covered the subject very well. I think it's been very, very enlightening. The amazing thing about Misha is that you learn something every time you speak to him, and some of it's just jaw-dropping. And the interesting thing is that even if you're not ill and you just change your lifestyle a little bit, it has very dramatic effects. And I'm just amazed. That as I go out and tell people who are over 60, listen, don't worry about aging, because all these things are myths. Putting on muscle mass. I've put on a lot of muscle mass. All the textbooks you read say you can't put on muscle mass as a man, when you're getting older. But it's all a myth. But anyway, that's my little speech.
Well, in some way, we have to accept many things. And, learning radical acceptance is the part of my work. So we're talking philosophy. And what is radical acceptance? Why is it has to be radical? And how is it, what about the fear of death?
Yeah.
We're all actually going to die. You're going to die. I'm going to die. All of our surroundings are going to die once. And it's not just because why bother? Because I love living and I really want to support life, but I want to support meaningful life. That's different. I don't want to vegetate when I'm old. That's really something I don't want.
Well, a lot of people are vegetating when they're quite young, because if you're in a situation where you've got diabetes too at a very young age, you live a morbid life. And with medication, you could possibly live another 50, 60 years. But under what conditions? It's terrible what's happening in our society at the moment.
That's the concept of life supporting medicine. That's the term life support. Okay. And that's right, Mark. Changing behavior is key to health. It is totally, and it's 100%. And that's what we are working on.
But there's a lot of paradoxes. That's the thing. The whole thing about what you're coming up with is paradoxes. The paradox of breathing. The idea that we need to restrict the amount of oxygen and keep the carbon dioxide in our body. It's a paradox.
That's a paradox. The more we breathe, the less oxygen we get to the cell.
Yeah.
The less we breathe, the more oxygen. And the other paradox, it's about sleeping. It's, actually we have to make a blab about sleeping, about sleep hacking. That's very, very interesting, because I saw in my clients that when we work with sleep hacking, that's a part of a life hacking. And the big hacker here from Russia. And I really love that. As an engineer, it's very interesting to see how the changes, small changes affect some parameters. And what I do now, for example, I encourage my clients, and I slowly help them bring themselves in a situation when they can sleep 4.5 hours, and they get up at 4:30 or 5 in the morning.
Fresh. They can work a full day.
The part of my anti-cancer protocol is bringing my clients the place where they are sleeping 4.5 hours and they're waking up at 4:30 in the morning.
Wow.
And I would like to have a special talk about this.
Well, we've got a lot of things to cover, I think.
A lot of things to catch up. Maybe we can do it already this week. What do you think?
Yeah, well, it'd be nice if everyone's around. We'd love to do that.
And I will present with a lot of different kind of scientific evidence and why is it interesting from different points of view, from different, views and angles, could be very interesting. And because that's a very big paradox. The less you sleep and the longer you live.
Well, the one for me was eat more fat and lose weight. It's like,
that's another thing. Yeah,
and it works for me. Everyone says, oh, but it depends on your nutritional type, your body type. Yeah. Well, I can't be so very different from most people, at least in Western Europe, Caucasian males. But I tell you, I've eaten more fat, I've lost a lot of weight, and I'm very happy.
That's another thing. And the very interesting thing is, we have to also talk about this, is that the argument of many people use, saying that, you cannot tell about that's good for everybody. You know what? That's only because they don't want change themselves. That's the most cases when this argument is used. You cannot talk for, and that's right. Actually, that's right. But the most cases where this argument is used, it's simply because the people don't want to change themselves. And they use this argument to say that they are different from the others. And that's a very interesting point. And I see it very often in my practice, that people use this argument. And the ones who use this argument are like that. They have a lot of changing hurts. That's right.
Yeah, it does.
Mark, changing hurts. And so we have to really remember, when people using this argument, that's mostly because they want to change others, but they don't want to change themselves.
No, the other thing, just
they want shortcuts. What the most people want, they want shortcuts. That's why
they want instant gratification.
With people that have cancer, because they really want to work every day. And people that, not only with cancer, some people are like that. They can work, and that's very much professional.
Well, I put it to you that our diets, especially the sugar dependence we have on sugar, has so corrupted our reward center that we just look for the easy answer to everything. But something about belief systems there. You remember speaking the other day to you, saying if someone walked up to you in the street and offered you €100, your belief system would refuse. You would refuse it because you say, "Well, this doesn't happen. This is beyond my belief system." My reaction is when I say that. I know this guy Misha, and he helps people cure themselves of cancer. They just change the subject. It's like, I didn't hear that. Yeah. Now just go and get some chemo, please.
Yeah, that's okay. It's okay because it's very easier. It's much easier to eat a pill. Our
health system in Western Europe has just turned us into a bunch of pill poppers, and the doctors into prescription writers. I mean, that's what it is. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. It's now 2 hours we've been at this, and thank you very, very much. There's some diehards there who've been there all the time. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch this on YouTube. I can't wait until it uploads. I think it'll take about an hour to upload, because I'm going to put it on my Facebook. I'm going to Twitter it, because I think everyone should see this. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And till the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your patience. And there will be a lot of very interesting aspects of self.
Cool. We can't wait to hear it.
Yes.
Fantastic. Cheers. All right.